Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. I am Shira Lotzar. Happy to be here with you today to answer your jobs first questions along with my colleague Vern Schellinger. Actually, we're not going to be joined by Alki Thompson today. He had other things to do, but we look forward to seeing him hopefully after the new year. And so the way we work here, for those of you who are new to our illustrious little group, is we are here to answer whatever job search questions are on your heart and mind. And time permitting, we'll go ahead and break folks out into some Zoom rooms so that folks can get to know each other. We have been helping folks to use LinkedIn to share contacts and connections, and it's been actually a very good experience. So I know we have a few new folks, and we'll get to a point where we'll go around the room and folks will introduce each other. But for now, let's go ahead and see if anyone has any questions that we can answer. I'm a career coach and a recruiter. Vern is a former HR executive and a career coach. And so we've got some great perspectives on both sides of the hiring aisle. So hopefully we will be helpful to you. All right. So who'd like to kick us off?
So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I don't have any questions, but sure, I wanted to share some fabulous news. I have a job.
Oh, yay.
I
Way to go,
got my
Paula.
offer this
Is it
week,
the one that
and
we talked about that we prepped for?
mhm,
Oh, good.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I am excited. Well, I'm sorry, not the Chiefs for Change.
That's okay.
It was the one that I had later in that week that
Okay.
I was going to use our conversation to help me prep for.
Oh, good.
But it's with Atlantic Union Bank,
Okay, good.
and I start on the 31st.
Yay. That's
Yay.
fabulous. What's the role,
Congratulations,
Paulette? Oh, we're
Paula.
so happy for you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you to you and Vern and um, oh my gosh, what is
Elkie?
the other guy?
Alki.
Elkie.
Alki. Yeah.
Alfie, there you go,
Yeah. Yeah.
for helping me
Oh,
through the journey.
oh, bless you. Bless you. What's the
Yeah.
role going to be?
It's an executive assistant too, and it's supporting the chief risk officer.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's working with their risk and finance
A
department.
lot of detail in that job, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. God bless you, Paulette. We're so happy for
Yeah.
you. I know this has taken a while, right? But
Yeah.
you know, God's timing is perfect. So good for you.
So I will share with the new people on here that Shira and her team are the best. They are the greatest. And if you stick with them, you will find a job.
Well, we are happy to help along the journey. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Well,
And it
Paulette,
is a journey.
it is a journey. It is a journey. It is a journey. And there's just so many pieces to it, right? And I know that Paletra, you and I had talked about interviewing prep. In fact, maybe you could share if you remember, if you maybe you can share one or two tips that we had talked about that maybe were helpful for you in your process, in your interview.
I will say the biggest tip that you gave me to help me with that particular interview that I had, but then the others that I also had lined up that week
Mm.
was the storytelling,
Hmm.
where they give you the either functional or behavioral questions
Yeah.
and how to share. I took what you said to heart
Good.
so much that I literally, when I read through the job descriptions, I would find the story from my work experience over my career to really relate to one or two of those specific roles
Yes.
or duties that the job description was looking for.
Yeah.
And that was how I shared my story. I made them actionable, I
Yeah.
made them result
Yes.
heavy. So it was the storytelling
Good.
that really helped me get through
Yeah.
those functional and behavioral questions and adjusting that for them to really see the skills that I would be able to bring to the organization and how I made it very applicable to the job description that
That's
for the
it.
job that I was applying for. So
That is it. That is
that
huge,
was the
Paletra.
key takeaway for me
I'm
that
so glad that
changed
you
everything.
I'm so glad that you shared that. And if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to actually springboard off of that. I know Vern and I both have what to share, but maybe we can start our conversation off with a little bit of interview prep. Is that cool? because we know that that is a huge piece of this. We always talk about networking on this call, and we can certainly go double back on that and how the job boards aren't working and you need to network your way. But once you land an interview, you want to make the most of it. And the storytelling piece is huge. And so I'm going to step back for a moment and share a bit about that before, Vern and I talk about some techniques. I'm actually going to draw a parallel to what Vern and I do for a living. Okay. Not the fact that we're coaches, but the fact that sometimes we actually work with employers and even with individuals like yourselves. And when a prospective client comes to us and interviews us, they don't call it that, but that's kind of what's happening. They're not just looking for us to say, oh, here's a laundry list of all the things that I can do for you. They want to know sometimes how we've helped other people, but not just how we've helped other people, but how we've helped other people in a very related way, right? So for example, I have multiple lanes to my highway. I'm a recruiter and a coach, an executive coach, and I do all kinds of things, right? Sometimes I work with individuals and sometimes I work with companies. I say that because if a company comes to me and wants me to do a recruiting search, they're not going to want me to tell them an example about how I helped a coaching client. That would be completely irrelevant, right? Vice versa, right? If a coaching client comes to me, they're not going to want me to tell them about this vice president search I did. That's irrelevant, right? I mention that because it's the same thing in your interviews. When that employer is asking you questions, describe a time when you did X, Y, and Z. What they're looking for is an example from you that is as directly related to the needs that they have as much as possible. They're not just looking for you to talk about any accomplishment story, but the ones that are going to show them that you can solve their specific problems. Now, how do you prep for that? Well, part of it is really, 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 two more reallys, really, really reading the job posting. Why am I saying so many reallys here? Because it is very, very easy when you're doing a job search, especially if you've been doing it for a while and you've seen the same job description over and over and over. It all starts to look the same. Do I get some head nods here? Do I get an amen? It starts to look the same. And you think, well, it's all, not for that company. That organization put in some very specific responsibilities framed in a certain way that they feel is unique to them. Just like they're seeing 100 resumes that, so to speak, look like yours. And you're like, no, but my particular resume, right? It's unique to you. Same thing. And so what happens on their end is they're like, well, we've got all of these challenges. Now, they can't put all of the challenges in the job description because they don't want to throw themselves under the bus, right? They're trying to be appropriate in how they frame things. But you can read into job descriptions. You can. Here's how. Look at the verbs that they use. Do they say words like, oh, you need to build something, launch something, reinvent something? That means that whatever the something is isn't working for them right now. They might even be a hot mess. They're just not using those terms. Anytime they use words that are aspirational, there is a problem behind that word. They need you to change something. They need you to deliver something. So if you can actually slow down and really, really read what they're saying, you can do some forensic analysis and go, what are they trying to say here? Maybe there are some questions that you could be asking them to get under the hood a little bit. To ask them, well, I noticed in the third bullet, you mentioned blah, blah, blah. I need to build or something, something, something. Tell me more about your current state. What's going on right now? And they'll go, well, let me tell you. Okay. Meanwhile, as you're thinking about that and you're thinking about the kinds of questions you want to ask, you can start to bring forward some accomplishment stories that you believe directly relate to what you think might be their challenges. On top of which, when the employer asks you, describe a time when you've blah, 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 you can slow it down and reframe the question for them. You can say, hey, happy to address that. Can you give me a little bit more color around this? Can you help me understand a little bit more about your question? what type of response you're looking for. Do you want me to answer it from this direction or from that direction? Of course, it buys you a little time when you do that, but more importantly, it gets you to answer the question they're actually asking. And guess what? Most interviewers don't know how to interview. Let that one hang in the air. They don't know what they're doing. Even recruiters usually don't know. People are making this thing up. If you had to interview somebody right now for a role, what would you do? What kinds of questions would you ask? How would you think this is much more of an art than a science. Trust me. Trust me. Even though people have standardized interview, they're not necessarily asking the right questions to get the right response. People are kind of winging it. Everybody's winging it. It's a kind of a contrived situation. So you can do your best to answer the questions in the most directly related way if you really, really get under the hood. Really, really analyze what are they saying. And sometimes you're going to figure that out in the if they have a summary of the job, like that opening paragraph. What's going on? What's going on? Really, really analyze it. Okay. Then the kind of story you tell, to Paulette's point, storytelling, there are a lot of formulas that people use. I happen to like the one called CAB, challenge, action, benefits. Some people like STAR, situation, task, action, result. I mean, like there's a lot, it's all the same thing. It's just you frame up the story. Here's the context, right? It's kind of like watching a movie. There's a difference between the context of a sci-fi movie versus something set in the Victorian era. You know that when you open up the movie, like what's going on, right? Why am I telling you the story? The action, of course, is, Superman's cape, right? You got into a phone booth and, right, you did your thing. And then the result or the benefit is how did it all wrap up in the end? Hopefully there's some metrics involved, maybe. If not, that's all right. But you improved something, you saved something, people were happier as a result of whatever you did. But you tell it in a story form. It's what I call a once upon a time story, not a generic story. A generic story is kind of like, well, generally speaking, I did these kinds of things. A once upon a time story literally is a point in time, right? It was 6 months ago, it was 2 years ago, it was 3 years ago, whatever it was. This is what was going on. It's a real, genuine, authentic story. And that's what they're looking for, right? Not something generic. They want something very specific, tangible. And part of why they ask you that is you can't really make that stuff up. it's real or it's not real. And it has color to it. And hopefully it's something that you felt very proud of. It was a real accomplishment. Your chest is going to open you up and you're going to be like, hey, let me tell you what it was. And then the other thing you can do in there is weave in your soft skills, weave in your behavioral skills. Not just what did you do, how did you do it? What's the mindset that you did it with? What were you thinking? Almost like narrate your story. This is what I was thinking as it was going along. Here's how I, use my critical thinking skills. Here are the kind of stakeholders that I engaged with. And here was why I decided to do it that way, right? Does this make sense? Like actually give color to the story. Show them not just what you did, but why you did it that way, how you did it, and how you were thinking. Does that make sense? Storytelling. All right, Monica, I do see your hand, but I want to give Verna a chance to opine. What else would you share?
Well, I don't have anything to add to what Shira said in terms of your preparation. The other dynamic to be aware of in any interview is the interviewer. And there are good interviewers and there's not so good interviewers. So you just need to, you need to go with the flow. I know I've told this story before, excuse me, on this, but I know there's some new folks here. I was interviewing for a senior VP of HR position, and I was interviewing with the chief financial officer of the organization. And he started the interview by telling me how much everybody was going to miss Howard. He was retiring, who was the former senior VP of HR. And he went on and on and on, and he said, "I'm under so much pressure. I've got to find another Howard." And people really are, looking, for another Howard and so forth and so on. And he was going on, and I'm going, "When's this interview going to start? We got an hour." And he's wasting time as far as I was concerned. So I said to him, and this is where sometimes you need to be on your feet in the interview and really really be prepared. I said, so Bob, tell me about why people, what was it about Howard that people loved so much and what were his contributions? And once he started to give me examples of Howard, then the stories I told him were stories that I thought related to exactly what Howard did. And so, like I said, you every interview is going to be a little bit different, and I'm sure you've already experienced that. So
Exactly. Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you, Brent. It's true.
yeah,
And every interviewer is different. It is very, very true. Personalities are different. Their styles are different. Again, the extent to which they know how to interview is different. What they share, how they share, right? All of that's important.
yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Oh.
Okay. So, Monica?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I had a question about the best story, and your build comment. Like, I have an application out. Who knows if I'll get an interview to be advocacy, communications, and marketing director for the Wounded Warrior Project. And at one of the responsibilities would be building a advocacy network across the country. And so what's most closely related to that from my experience is a firm that I worked for was involved with demobilizing combatants in northern Uganda and Colombia. And so my question is with the Colombia, I'm aware of it. I wasn't personally involved. Some of it was confidential. They've taken the USAID websites down, so like you don't even know what you're supposed to say and what you're not supposed to say. But I I was not personally involved. I was just aware of it. I was billable to the Uganda work for a media activity. Um, but my point is that I was only marginally involved. I'm aware of it. I know how it happened. I know some of the operational
If I
details.
if I can
Yeah,
interject here, Monica, right?
yeah,
To keep this high level,
yeah,
for everybody's sake. So here's what I will say, because I can't speak to your specific situation.
yeah,
But here's what I will say to everyone. When an organization is asking you to build something, launch something, or what have you, they are typically looking for you to have directly related experience. We always talk about employers being very risk averse. That's not untrue. It's very, very true. So I can't speak to that job and your background, Monica, but
yeah,
I will say in general, um, and by the way, what I'm about to share also is related to whatever they put in the first few bullets of the qualification section. Everybody
yeah,
hear what I just said. The first few bullets of the qualification section, where they'll typically say, well, X number of years with experience doing X, experience demonstrated, accomplishments. So I don't know the job, Monica, but I'm making this up. They might have said X years of experience in the advocacy realm or government relations or whatever it is. If they say something like that, they're typically looking for the person to have solid, grounded, hands-on, I did this, I led this thing, with some real accomplishments, and not a familiarity, not knowledge of or exposure to, but real hardcore, tangible.
yeah. The qualifications don't mention having that niche, but I have exposure to that niche.
Yeah.
But
So I don't know
yeah,
specifics. This is more on
yeah.
when we get these questions on this call, like I try to
Yeah,
make it
no,
as generic as possible.
I meet the qualifications for sure of of the job, but the experience that I have with USAID is within in the ballpark, but the decommissioning the combatants
Yeah.
is directly related to what they're doing. But like I said, one, I just know the operational details. The other one I was just marginally involved with the media. But the main idea was to prevent spoilers from undermining the welcome homes.
So
Because,
here's
if
Well,
you
so,
welcome
so,
people home, you can get the neighbors, the police harassing
so
people.
Monica,
Yeah.
I'm just going to try to pull this up a little bit, okay? We might
Yeah.
not get a little bit out of the detail.
Yeah.
Um, so again, for everybody's sake here, okay, if you're
Yeah.
thinking about how to relate your experience and you're looking at the qualifications and you're looking at
Yeah.
what they're asking you to do, I want you to all think about something that I often mention in this call.
Yeah.
It's what I call the difference between your lane and your community. Your lane is what you do. Your community is who you do it for. So your lane is the profession. So you're in, or you're in IT, or you're in marketing, or you're in HR, you're in accounting, whatever you're doing. They are going to be looking for certain skill sets. Do you know how to do the things we need?
Mhm.
When it comes to community, that's the industry, mission, or sector. Now,
Mhm.
what that means is that the employer often, not always, but 85% of the time, maybe 90% of the time, wants you to come from that sector, whatever that means. Now, it might not mean just the environmental sector. Let's say it's an environmental nonprofit. It might mean very specifically, oh, clean air issues or
Mhm.
solar issues or whatever it is, right? Think very specifically, to what extent do you have expertise or experience in their particular issue sets? Just for an example, yesterday I was starting to coach somebody from USDA who is in a particular niche in food, and not generically, but very specific skill set. And as she and I were talking, and we were talking about her networking, we were talking about where she would be best fit. She has some very specific issue expertise, not generic agriculture, very specific. Well, sure enough, as we kept talking, there's a certain segment of the ag community that she's rightly in line for. Okay. Not other things, a very specific thing. It's the same thing when you're interviewing. Look deeply into the issue areas that they might need to have you solve or work in, and say, do I know, to what extent do I know about those issues? Have I worked with those issues? So, Monica, we're going to move on to Paulitra for the sake of time, but I'm
Yeah, yeah.
hoping
No, for the military, I do have some niche
so.
But Monica,
background. Yeah.
Monica, the other thing, and this is important for everybody. As you said, you have familiarity with it or you had some exposure to it. You've got 60 minutes usually.
Right.
Right.
And you need to make sure during that 60 minutes you're focused specifically on the job to talk about, well, I had and go off on a tangent about exposure or familiarity with this. You're
Right.
wasting your time in terms of telling them exactly how you can, do
Well,
the job.
that's my question. That's my question because the Uganda and Colombia is most related, but that was, as far as my star stories, that would not be a star story because, my role, I was not the strategist there. I was just,
Well, if it's not a star story, then don't,
Then
then
don't
but
don't
share
then,
it.
talk about
but
it.
then if I'm talking about something that's completely unrelated to the military, then, yeah. So it's.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing, Veronica. Paulatra?
The question, Shira, there was a question in the chat
Oh, there
about
was. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
lane and community. Can you go over that one more time? Because
Oh,
the
for
one thing
sure.
you said, as and you say this all the time, you know, everyone has a lane. You may or may not have a
Have a
community.
community. That's exactly
So
right.
maybe just
Yeah.
go over that again.
Yeah. So a lane. Yeah. So Mark put that in the turn. So
Thank,
his lane is right. So
thank you. Sorry.
yeah, for sure. So a lane, let me just go over some lanes. So again, you're a project manager, you're a human resources generalist, you're an executive assistant, you're a customer service rep, whatever you are, okay, CEO. That's what you do. Now, there are some lanes like marketing, for example. Some marketing professionals don't have a community. They can do marketing for nonprofit, for profit, this and that's fine. HR, classic. A lot of HR people can work for profit, nonprofit. But there are some of you that have a community, an industry, mission, or sector that you align with. You're in K-12 education. You're in the financial service, like Mark. So Mark very much is community focused. He's not only banking, but he has a regulatory angle to his banking knowledge. He understands anti-fraud and he's got some very specific housing issues, right? So he's got some very specific community issues that he knows really, really well. So you want to think about if, in your case, you have industry, mission, or sectoral knowledge that could be particularly helpful to an employer. And let me just jump off of this for a moment. This is important. If you are in long-term transition, which I know a lot of people are these days, and your job is to get a job, you want to be the most attractive candidate that you can be to the employer. And the best way to do that is to reverse engineer your search and think to yourself, who would be most attracted to me? I'm going to say that one more time. It's probably going to be my new favorite phrase. Who would be most attracted to me? Not just who am I most attracted to, because you might be wonderfully attracted to an organization, but if they're not attracted to you, they're probably not going to hire you. If you look at a job and simply say, oh, I'm interested, that doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified. Guys, I'm getting really brass tacks here because I know a lot of you are looking to land like right now. If you are just interested and not really, really qualified, you probably won't get it. I'm not saying you won't get the job, but your chances of getting the job really go way down because the employer is risk averse. When you then, however, look at your skill set and say, given my background, who would be most attractive to me? You could get very, very targeted very, very fast. This woman I was working with yesterday, we got really, really targeted, right? She's in like this meat and poultry area and all these things, like very specific kinds. She knows about stuff like detail. And I was like, oh, this organization, this organization, this organization, they would be very, very attracted to you because you can make an immediate impact. Okay. Think about it that way. Again, getting back to the interviewing, you connect the dots of if you have community expertise, industry sectoral, connect the dots as much as you possibly can. That's going to say, this person can solve our problems fast. Everybody these days wants you to slide into home base flying. They don't want you to have hardly any learning curve. They need to know that you can solve their problems really, really quickly. How do they know that? Because if you know what you're doing in your lane and you hopefully understand their industry or sector, presuming that's appropriate for you, that's where they're going to feel the love, if that makes sense. Okay. All right, let's move on to Palacha.
Sorry, Cher. I just wanted to share something else I thought about as you were talking, circling back to the, interview of not knowing how to interview. Your tip to me about how to ask questions that took the focus off of me and just career development was another area that I feel like was important and helpful to me, because when I got into the interview, as they were sharing to me about, the job and the duties and responsibilities and things of that nature, and then it came to me to ask my questions, I was able to formulate very strategic questions that were focused on how my role and how this position can help drive that mission and purpose of the organization, instead of just focusing on me and my career development and how you guys advance people. And, so I just wanted to share that too was a game changer for me in my interviewing, is being able to ask questions that really shared how I want to help drive the work that you're doing. And I really took a point to focus on what their, how companies have like their little mottos or whatever. I really took a point to take a look at that and break it down so that my questions were related to how my position helps drive that motto for them and meets that quota for their community that they are trying to meet. So I just wanted to share that with you as well, that, if you even take it to that level of the questions you ask, that can be impressive and make a difference of if you get the job or not too.
So I'm going to go on, friend.
I was just going to say that is the other thing that we often say on this call. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Make it a conversation between you and the interviewer, and actually asking questions. They might clarify the question for you. You might be able to give a better answer by asking a question and digging a little bit deeper in terms of what they're looking for. So
I would go so far as to say many employers will actually decide whether or not you're an attractive candidate depending on the kinds of questions you ask. And if you ask questions, I know many employers who say, oh, the person didn't ask some questions. I don't think that they're a critical thinker. They're not interested. They're not curious. And then you don't get the job. So you need to ask questions, but you need to ask, to Palacha's point, strategic questions that indicate that you are curious, that you're a thinker, you want to drive results for them. Ask them things. In fact, you can ask them about anything around the job description to have them clarify. You can also humbly proffer ideas. if you're, especially if it's a second or third level interview and you've actually understood a little bit more about the role, please consider offering some ideas and saying, oh, Mr. Employer, I was reading the job description, I was doing my research. We were talking in our first level interview about XYZ challenges that you have. I was thinking, have you ever considered going in this direction? Might this be something that could be, right for you all? What might it look like for me to stand up the role in this way and have some ideas? And I will also suggest for those of you for whom you feel this is appropriate, in the second or third level interview, here's another thing we don't normally talk about here, is actually doing a little presentation for them. For some of you, this actually could work, where you come up with a little deck, 10-minute deck, and actually walk them through your ideas based upon what you know about the role, and use that to actually to fuel a conversation. Okay. Now, again, it's not right for everybody, but for some of you, it might be right. And you can ask the employer before the second or third level interview, particularly for a third level, say, can we carve out 10 minutes for me to do this? And you can say, I'd like to do a little bit of a presentation. I did a SWOT analysis, or I was thinking about some ideas, wanted to proffer this. Now, if you do this, you got to be careful. You're not dictating to them. You're not saying, I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do the job. You have to be what I call humbly confident. You proffer some ideas and say, here are some things that I was thinking about, wanted to get your input, just like as if it was your first week on the job or first couple of weeks on the job. After you've done some research, you would go to your boss and say, hey, boss, I was thinking, what might it look like if we pursue this or that? What do you think? And you like engaging with them in a strategic conversation that shows them how you think. You're not saying, I'm going to do this. You're saying, what might it look like if we explore X, Y, or Z, right? Then what you're doing is you're putting yourself into the role. You're trying the jacket on for size, and so are they. They're getting to know how you think. You're getting to know how they think, because that's what the supervisory direct report relationship is. It's a relationship. They think a certain way, you think a certain way, and you're kind of coming together and saying, are we aligned? And it's good for you too, because you're going to say, do I like working with this person? Mm-hmm. Right? So these are all kinds of ways that you can do this. But again, it's humble confidence. You ask great questions, maybe proffer some ideas, get them engaged, that kind of thing. It sounds like Pauletta, you were kind of in that direction, right? They were seeing she's a critical thinker. She is getting this. She's trying to show us that she's part of our family before she's part of the family. You're not just a resume. You're not just giving, some stock responses. You cared enough to read and to research and to think and to ask questions and to relate your examples. Does that make sense? You do all of these things. The employer's like, oh, this person cares. I'm going to say one more thing, and then Anuja, I see your hand. You alluded, Pauletta, to the kinds of things that this company was up to. Values. You research them, right? Well, some companies actually have their corporate values on their website, sometimes even in the job description. I'll give you a quick example. So the Southwest Airlines, there are 3 values that they have that they want every single person to have, when even down to the ramp people, everybody, baggage people, everybody. They want you to have a warrior spirit, a fun-loving attitude, and a servant's heart. Okay. They're serious about this. They interview people based on this. Well, if you happen to know this, because you did some research, you can speak into it. You can ask questions about it. You can make sure that your stories are aligned. You can showcase your attributes. You can actually address it and say, hey, I noticed on your website, you have these core cultural values. Tell me more about that, Mr. Employer, Ms. Employer. Tell me how that shows up every day. Let me talk to you about how I relate to those values. Understand? Be attractive to them, because that's what they want. They need to know that you're going to move the needle forward in their organization. The what you do, the how you do it, cultural fit, all of those things matter. Does this making sense? Okay, Anuja?
So I have a specific question. So I recently had an interview with an organization that I had worked for, oh gosh, 20 some years ago. And at that time, their culture was not, well, when I say culture, it was a agriculture organization. And, when I first started, there was definitely a difference between how they treated, male employees versus female employees. And I felt it. And so in this interview, I asked about the culture. I'm like, I remember when I had started for another agriculture organization, just as a woman, I felt like, I didn't have a seat at the adult table. Like I was relegated to the children's table, even though I was, in leadership position. I asked the question whether, there's been a shift in that thinking. And I don't know if I should have asked that question or not, because again, it impacted me directly, I asked whether there had been a shift in that thinking, whether, the agriculture community of today had changed. So I guess my question is sort of two-part. A, was it okay that I asked a question? And I didn't get the position, but that's also because I would have had to locate. Uh, but to what extent should you use your previous experience or knowledge of certain things you've gone through in order to ensure that whatever position you're applying for now, that you don't put yourself in that same situation?
So here's how I would address that, and Vern, love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly fine to address it, but there's a way to address it. Okay. So the way that I would address it is to ask aspirational questions, or what I'll call windshield questions, rather than a rear view mirror questions. A windshield question says something to like in that case, it might say something to the effect of, hey, would love to, gosh, I even know what that particular question would be, but talk to me about your how inclusive your decision making is at the executive level, or describe to me how the executives make decisions, things like that. I'm not sure the specific question. I'd have to really think about it for you. But here's what I might avoid. Okay, I would avoid giving backstory to that, because you want your interviews and your questions to be positively framed, always going forward. If you start to do rear view mirror and say, well, here was the problem, it could make it, I'm not saying you are doing this, but it could make it seem like you're complaining, right? That kind of thing, right? I know you're not, but it could be misperceived that way. So, and that goes not just for the situation like what you're talking about. That could be for your own situation. Like, let's just say in your life, in your career, you've had you've had negative experiences with this, that, or the other, culture, anything culture related or whatever. You want to try to avoid talking about those things. You can still address it by framing it aspirationally, framing it positively. Tell me. So, for example, maybe you came from toxic cultures or whatever, and there wasn't a lot of there was team toxicity. You frame it and tell me about, how your teams work together. Tell me about your team culture, and tell me about, how you inspire inclusive decision making here, and how think phrases that speak to where you're going and what you're looking for, rather than, well, what you don't have and what didn't work for you. Be thinking about the positive framing. Does that make sense? It's always like a glass half full question rather than a glass half empty. Vern?
Yeah, I would just agree. Just try to stay away from any kind of potential negative situations, in the interview. It just, and again, having been in HR, I interviewed a lot of people throughout my career. And as an interviewer, yeah, you're looking at skills, you're looking at the expertise, you're looking, can they do the job? But you're also interviewing a human being who's got feelings and thoughts and ideas. And we all draw our first impressions, whether it's in an interview or just a conversation. And certainly in the interview, you want the interviewer to walk away with a positive thinking about the interview and who you were and how you presented yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you both. I appreciate those. And I did it in a positive way. I wanted to ensure that I focused on the position, but I wanted to just sort of, again, when after the interview, I did a presentation too, like Shira, you had mentioned from the outset. I walked away from it thinking, should I have said that? But at the same time, I wanted to sort of be open and sort of honest to ensure that, hey, whatever happened at 20, 30 years ago, there's been a cultural shift. And so, um, yeah, but thank you. I hear what you're saying, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Mm.
this is sort of in general.
Yeah.
And also this also relates to things of a personal nature too. Look, when you're in a job search, it's personal for you, right? It's a personal experience. And whether you have feelings about your job search or feelings about where you just came from or things that were negative or even in your own personal life, right? Because we all have things that go on. You really, really want to try to put all of that in rearview mirror. Okay. When you are showing up to the employer, they need to know that you are for them. Yes, of course, it has to be a right fit for you, but from their perspective, that you're going to be professional, that you're going to speak in a way that is business oriented or organizationally focused, that you're not going to, bring in you're going to be appropriate when it comes to anything that's of a personal nature. I mean, you are a human being, of course, but this is a professional setting. And so they're listening for all of those things. How much detail you go into, you want to keep your stories tight, right? Again, anything of a personal nature, anything of a negative nature, keep it as positive and authentic, right? I don't mean robotic. You don't be robotic, but they do want to know that you are going to be a good culture fit. If that's helpful? Monica?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a similar thing. You know that I would love to serve combat veterans at this point in my life, but there's kind of a of coming out and saying I like green eggs and ham type situation with that because when you're growing up in a Navy town, you get a really if you talk to sailors, you have a really bad reputation. Of course, so of course I did it, but separate from that, I was really tall, so I at a young age, I looked older than I really was, and so that was somewhat of a problem. But my point is that, I'm old. I don't even care at this point, and I don't know that that matters. But you know, but it is. Yeah, but I mean, it is kind of like saying I like green eggs and ham when, I don't know how else to go with that. But, like I said, I'm old, I don't care. And, and I think the Navy culture has changed and I'm not 16 years old. So, yeah.
I would say just in general for everyone here, again, directly related experience is very helpful. Having an interest in a mission is also important. It's not the only thing because there are a lot of people who have an interest in mission that may or may not be qualified. I'm not saying you, Monica, per se, but like in general, just be thinking about that. If you align with an organizational mission, but don't have the qualifications, you need to think a couple times before you apply. Because at the end of the day, when they relate you to their mission, they're not just thinking at a heart level, they're thinking at a business level. Does this person understand our lingo? Do they understand our business challenges? Do they understand the sector so that they can make a quicker impact in the role? That's often why people are looking for that, for that alignment. All right. Erin, did you have a question?
Yes, thanks. And thank you so much, Shira and Vern, for making this possible. This is my first time here and really grateful and happy to meet everybody. Um, my question is what your thoughts or advice might be on taking a job that you're overqualified for, or even what I call like a gas station job, like something to pay the rent and the bills, and um, versus tapping into like I'm at the point, not yet, but soon will be either having to do that or tap into my retirement funds. And when I lost my job last year, we lost our health insurance, and I'm, having some sleepless nights these days looking at I'm on Obamacare or ACA Marketplace at the moment. So I'm thinking like, should I just urgently try to get some job so that I can have health insurance, or should I hold out a little longer, maybe even if I have to tap into the retirement funds, but so that I can get a job that's more aligned with my experience and my aspirations? Would it be a setback to take something temporary, or it doesn't matter?
So we'll address this since of course we can't address your specific situation. Well,
Sure.
I think what you've just shared, Erin, actually has relatability to others here, okay? Because we do certainly see a lot of people are like, oh, do I take the stopgap job? Do I take the job that's sort of beneath my skills in order to just kind of pay the rent kind of thing? So I'm going to offer you something, and Vern, obviously, please, share your perspective. So here's the thing. So let's just say you're at level X, whatever that is, all right? You apply for a job that's at level Y. Now, first of all, remember you gotta always remember the employer side of things. There's your side, you've got the bills, all the things. Remember the employer here. Always start with them because they're the ones making the hire. If you apply for a job that is at level Y when you're at level X, first of all, the chances of you even getting interviewed are very slim. Because the employer is saying this is a risky hire. This is a person who is overqualified for this role. They're probably not going to be challenged. There are plenty of people who could do this level at the right level. Why would we even go there? So just understand, just at that level, very, very unlikely that you even get the interview, let alone get hired. Because even if you do get the interview, they're going to question you. They're going to say, but Erin, you were here. Do you sure you want to do here? And you're thinking to yourself, no, I'm not sure. I'm just doing this to pay the bills. Okay. So my recommendation, okay, is two things. For your professional job search, stay here. Then drop my hand over here. Over here. This is the stuff over here that has nothing to do with this. This is whatever you want to call it, the seasonal job at Target, the whatever. But more importantly, guys, it's something we don't talk about here a lot, but I'm going to refer you to another community service program I've been running for years called Boomer Works. Please know, every single one of you has an opportunity to do some freelance work, to do some self-employment. I'm not saying you have to start a full business. There are so many opportunities all around you to pick up gig work, to pick up side work. It could be anything. You could have great financial skills and want to do somebody's light bookkeeping. You could be a great organizer and offer your neighbors some closet organizing. You could be a great party planner and say, hey, I'm going to plan your kid's next birthday. I mean, there are a million little things that you can do if you just put your mind to it. Say, what are some hobbies I have? What are some creative skills that I have? Professional skills that I have? Not to go for this job, but just to pay the bills over here. You're a great baker. Hold on. I gotta give you the story. Paula Dean, I know she's not popular anymore, but at the time she was with the Food Network. Okay, I'm going back a day. I don't know if you know her story. She was an agoraphobe. She was scared to leave the house. She had 2 teenage kids, and she says, we got to make money. But she knew how to cook. So there was an office park near their house. She sent her kids to the office park, and she said, I want you to take sandwiches. I want you to sell the sandwiches in the office park. And they did. And those people love those sandwiches, man. One thing turned to another. She started a business. Then she gained some confidence, left the house, started a restaurant, and eventually became Paula Dean. Okay. My point is she repurposed a skill, a hobby, into a business. I'm not saying y'all have to go into a full business, but I am telling you, you've got talents. You've got things that other people would find valuable. That could be some side work over here and pay some bills. Who knows? Maybe you'll actually like it enough that you do want to start a business. That has happened. That has happened. So Erin, I really would recommend if you're going to go after the professional stuff, stay here. You want to earn some bills, do something completely different. That has nothing to do here. It's just income based, because then there's no conflict. Does that make sense? You can drop that thing immediately when you find the thing that is actually right for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Vern, any thoughts on that?
No, that's given the length of time that people are searching for jobs now, it's just
You need to think
drudgery.
creatively. And may I say that we need to think like our younger colleagues. I know our call tends to be a 50+ community. Let me just acknowledge what is, all right? Really. We need to start thinking like the Gen Zers and the millennials who knew about side hustles from birth. Okay. And I'm telling you that there are kids out there who are making $1 million doing streaming videos. I mean, just it's unbelievable what they're doing on social media. So I want us to all think creatively. What can we do that will earn income that's a little non-traditional, that can leverage technology or leverage our relationships with our neighbors or whatever, just so that the income can come in while you're looking for the professional slot. Okay. William, and then Paulette.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to go back a little bit when we were kind of talking about, asking good questions and having more of a conversation. My question is, and this comes from a third interview I had last week, would it be helpful to prepare and be prepared to discuss a 30, 60, 90-day plan at that point? Or do you just ask, or do you wait for them to ask?
I have a
for
real
that?
opinion upon that, but about that particular one. I do.
Okay.
Okay. In theory, there's nothing wrong with a 30, 60, 90-day plan. Here's my personal issue, because I'm going to put my recruiter hat on for a second, and Vern, love to hear your thoughts. The thing about a 30, 60, 90 is that a lot of a 30, 60, 90 involves what we call the listening tour, right? You do a listening tour with your stakeholders. William, everybody says the same thing. Everybody says the same thing. I'm going to do a listening tour with my stakeholders or some version of that, right?
Sure. Yep.
Besides which, the 30, 60, 90 to me is too tactical for an interview, because you actually don't know yet all the things and all the people and all the questions and all, because you just don't know enough yet because you haven't started the job. Okay. My feeling is you go higher level than that, much higher, strategic. If you can pull together a SWOT, great. If you can talk about some industry issues they're facing, or sectoral issues, departmental challenges, this and high level, and how you would approach things at a high level, strategic questions you would ask, or some dots you've connected. But to me, 30, 60, 90 goes too in the weeds for where you're at in the interview. And again, it starts to sound very generic, because other people are going to write the same kind of 30, 60, 90. Does that make sense? It's not going to make you sound as special as maybe what you want to be, but I think strategically it's going to be, it'll be a lot more powerful. That's my opinion. I don't know if Vern, if you have a different opinion.
No, I don't have a different opinion. The other thing to think about is, when I've been interviewing for a job, I've often asked questions around, well, tell me more about that, because you just don't know everything that's going on inside the organization. And there's stuff, I mean, you're there for an hour and you're gonna learn something, but it's there's just a lot of stuff going on in the organization, and which you don't know until you actually get the job and you walk in there. And it's also a thing about culture. Everybody says, well, I want the culture of the organization. And I still maintain to this day, you do not know the culture of the organization, no matter how much you try, how many people you talk to, how many, oh yeah, I worked there and it was a great company. Let me tell you about my experience there. You won't really feel and know the culture until you've been there, at least a month or 2 months or 3 months.
That's right.
You hope that it's a great match, and you can be pretty sure. I mean, you can be pretty sure that it's going to be a good match, but it's never 100%. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Aletra?
I just really quick wanted to kind of go back to Erin and the question she was asking, because I lost my job in January. So literally I've been unemployed this entire year, and I found myself getting to a point of desperation and really just applying to just about any job that, I thought fit some of the skills that I had, even if they were beneath me. But what I found was I was rejected more quickly from those jobs, to Shira's point, that they looked at me like, why would you be applying for this job that's beneath your skill level? So what I did was I remarketed my strategy. It was like, maybe if I put myself out there as a virtual assistant, I can still do high level support to executives in a virtual space and, on a temporary basis. But I also started the process of being a medical courier delivery person because it was just a way for me to kind of earn some money if I hadn't gotten the most recent job offer. So I definitely agree with what Shira says because it's funny. Vern has sent me a job that Shira had shared that I thought I qualified for, and Shira had to point out, okay, you do know what this job is asking as we, really dug into the job description. And I was like, okay. So definitely, I know that bills do not stop because you don't have a job, but I would say that you'll find you'll get quickly rejected from jobs that are more beneath your skill set and your profession than you will, so don't let the desperation push you to applying for jobs that are beneath you because it's not really going to work out for you. So stick to the profession, as Shira said, but find other ways that you can utilize transferable skills to bring in an income for you. And like I said, I was looking at a medical courier. I have nothing in the medical field, but it was just a way that I knew that I could probably get some extra funds and money to be able to cover my bills.
Some of those jobs, don't require experience because they know it's just kind of like, a lot of people could be trained for it. But something else that could be appropriate, Paulette, I'm going to riff off of your virtual assistant thing. For some of you on this call, you could repurpose your skills into consulting. You don't have to do it full time. It doesn't have to be a full business. But even in the interim, you could hang your shingle as a consultant to your sector or in your profession, offer your strategic thinking skills to people in your network who know you, love you, and trust you, who might have a need for an outsourced project or they need some strategic advice. And they might hire you at $250, $350 an hour. Really, that's what consultants charge. Yeah, which is actually about 3 times more than what people are making, in the equivalent annual salary. Because I will tell you, if you're making $150,000 salary, that's about $75 an hour. But the equivalent in the consulting world is about $250 or $350 an hour for that very same person. Okay. Yes, that's a whole other conversation that we could have. But please know, Erin, and you're probably one of those people, that you could offer some consulting to people to help, especially now in the nonprofit world, because I know you've come from the government, where they're convulsing, they need advice. And maybe, just maybe, because you came from the other side of the sector, you could offer them a strategic lens and they might pay a couple dollars for it. So think about that too. Yeah. Got to get out to your network and say, hey, can I help you in whatever way? Not just as a W-2 job. Can I support you, right? In some other way, in some consulting, whether an outsourced project. Because a lot of people, by the way, can't afford to hire people on a W-2 capacity now, but they can afford to hire you as a project person, a discrete project for a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. They're not putting you in full-time salary. They don't have to pay benefits, all the things, but they have a project need and they might be able to hire you just for that need, pays the bills for you, gives them a little bit of outsourced support, and everybody's happy. Okay. Erin, did you have another question or should I go to Andrew?
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks to Pauletta for sharing your wisdom and experience, and congratulations on your new job. And Shira, also what you just said about consulting. You might have seen my jaw drop when you talked about the hourly rate. So that's another conversation for another time because I'm probably devaluing or undervaluing what I might ask for. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew?
Yeah, we're talking about gig jobs. I posted in the chat my experience. I have 10 years working in IT deployment, and there's certain things I do not know about that industry, and that's what I'm afraid about. If I get these gig jobs, it will be something that I don't know anything about.
Well, guess what, Andrew? When you get a regular job, a regular W-2 job, there's going to be a lot that you don't know about, but you're smart and you'll figure it out. Everybody knows that. Really, if you got a regular job right this moment, you'll walk into the job and you'll be like, well, there's some things I know, but there's a lot of things I don't. You don't know the corporate culture. You don't know all their issues. You don't know like any job, you're going to have to figure it out. Everybody does it, whether you're a W-2, whether you're a consultant, you come in with a certain level of knowledge and the rest of it you have to learn. People will be fine with that, really. You're smart. You'll figure it out.
I mean, the other thing I would say, Andrew, is and I don't know the situation specifically, but how much can you find out about the job? I hear you if you say, there's so many different skills in tech that if you don't have the exact skills for that particular program, then you won't be able to do the job. But, can you find that out some way to help, help you find opportunities where you're confident going in? Yeah, I've got all of these skills to do this project. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's different type of computers I can replace the screens on, but there's some that I cannot. I'm more complicated.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
just evaluate it to see how much of a learning curve is it going to be for you, right? Only you can make that determination. And if I like to say it might stretch your rubber band, that's okay. You don't want it to break the rubber band. It stretches you a little bit. It's okay. It really is. You just have to take it case by case. All right. So we are just about wrapped up at time, but I do want to at least spend a few minutes going around the room and having people share what they do. Okay. So you can at least at this high level, we won't do the LinkedIn breakouts today for the sake of time, but at least to get people to do a little bit of networking. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go around the room and we're going to do lane and community. So here's how this works. It's going to be super quick, no backstory, no detail, no color. Literally, you're going to say, all right, so my lane is marketing, or my lane is project management or attorney or whatever it is, really quick. And then if you have a community, we're not going to talk about your backstory right now, just windshield, right? Going forward, the community that you want to be in is X or Y. It's banking, or it's commercial real estate, or construction, or whatever it is. So your lane is what you do, then your community, who you do it for. So quick. Now, as we go around the room, then we're doing a quick because of the sake of time, because we have like a dozen people on the call. I want each of you to be listening to your colleague, making a note and go, oh, hey, she's in IT, he's in PM work or whatever. I would like to connect with them. Maybe you have a referral for them that could be interesting. Or maybe you just feel like, oh, wait, we're in similar fields. We're in similar lanes or similar communities. Maybe we could, connect, have an offline. And I always recommend, if you're comfortable, to put your contact information in the chat, right? So people can follow up with you. You can follow up with them, have an offline coffee. In person would be great. We're trying to get people to get out of the house now or a Zoom, and just build a relationship, because you're both in job search, right? And you hopefully can help each other, because you're going to you might hear about opportunities that are not right for you, but could be right for somebody else, right? So quick. Let's do Erin, then Monica, and then Tim, and then I'll keep on going. So Erin, Monica, and then Tim.
Hi, I would say my lane is public health policy advisor / program manager. My community is global public health, women's and children's health, humanitarian response. Thanks.
Thanks, Monica, and then Tim.
Well, I'm Monica Jerby, and my lane is marketing, communications, outreach, public relations, that sort of thing. My community has always largely been international development as a USAID contractor, and I am trying to pivot to where I come from, the military intelligence kind of world.
Great, thank you. All right, Tim, then William, then Christian.
Hi, I'm Tim Jack. I have kind of a dual lanes. In the federal world, I'm a budget person, budget officer. In the private sector, I do senior level FP&A. And my community, well, it's private sector, I'm open, and obviously in the public sector, budget officer.
Got it. Thank you. William, Christian, and then Andrew.
William Willie, PR communications and digital marketing strategist. And my lane, or my community, is mission-driven organizations, meaning larger not-for-profits and trade associations.
Great, thanks. Christian, Andrew, and I guess Paulette, we can move past you today, right? Okay, so Christian, Andrew, and then Dave.
Good morning. I'm Christian Teach. My lane is management consulting, operations strategy, chief of staff, those kinds of roles. Community open, actually came from a nonprofit, but open to anything fits my lane.
Great. Andrew, Dave, and then Mark.
Medical device repair, hospitals, doctors' offices, psych wards, jails, and counseling, convalescent homes.
Okay, thank you. Dave, Mark, and then Scott.
I work in software analytics, mostly in finance and/or federal space.
Mark, and then Scott.
Yes, I'm an attorney and I work for financial institutions, banks.
And then Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott Boudreau, Certified Planning Inventory Management. I'm in Central New Jersey and I'm looking for a remote or job in Central New Jersey in supply chain, specializing in inventory control or production planning. Scott Boudreau.
All right, everyone. So remember to put your contact information in the chat if you feel comfortable, so that folks can reach out to you. Particularly your LinkedIn URL is helpful, and then to connect with each other on LinkedIn. So we will be reconnecting here. Let's see here, on January 2nd. All right, for the new year. So I'm going to go ahead and formally wrap up this part of the call. For those of you who'd like to stay on the call for a short prayer call, I'll be leading that for a few minutes. And otherwise, wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and look forward to seeing you on the 2nd.